What an absolute privilege to sit here with John Keyter in Stellenbosch. Not a bad spot to sit. John, when I read your story and when I actually scrambled upon your name, or heard about you when I researched the John Slovan story, or the Vernon Slovan story, and this John Keyter name just popped up. So tell me, where did it begin for John Keyter the swimmer?
Firstly, I have to put on record that I'm a bit nervous being with you, because I've watched your other interviews, and your interrogation operation is actually quite thorough. So I made a couple of notes in case you know something that I don't know.
I've got the notes.
Or that maybe I've forgotten something that's happened more than 50 years ago. But yeah, I started, I was taught to swim by a man in the Greendale swimming pool in Salisbury, Rhodesia, with a harness around me, tied to the end of a bamboo pole.
Oh wow.
And even though I'm the world's worst breaststroker, that was the way I learned to swim. And every day he put less pressure on the bamboo pole. It was like a fishing rod. He walked next to me. So I became a breaststroker. And then somehow I won a couple of races.
What age was that, John?
I was about 12. I couldn't swim up until then, 12 or 13.
Really? So you started swimming at the age of 12?
Then I went to Frank Parrington, and by some complete fluke, at a place called Mufulira, which I think in those days was still northern Rhodesia before it became Zambia. I broke a South African record to everybody's surprise, including my own, in the 100 meters butterfly. And that was kind of surprise, and game on. And then I went to my first Currie Cup in 1964 in Port Elizabeth.
As a 15-year-old?
As a 14-year-old.
14-year-old.
And of course I swam against, you mentioned Vernon Slovan. He won the 200 and Neil Aldridge came second. I was fourth.
Okay.
And in the 100 Neil Aldridge won it. I think Slovan was second and I was sixth. That was in 1964.
Right.
And I can still remember Jeff Grills winning all the men's events. And to our absolute amazement, you must remember now, we'd come all the way from Salisbury. It took us 3 or 4 days on a train to get to Port Elizabeth.
No swimming pools on a train?
No swimming
Just
pools.
Food?
Yep. And a lot of messing around, as you can imagine, a bunch of teenage kids all on their own for 4 days on a train. And I remember Jeff Grill swimming with his head up when he were doing on some of the races, and we just thought this guy looked like he was loosening up, and yet he beat everybody.
Wow.
Tall, skinny, but swam like he was born in the water.
Now there's a story that goes around that he actually spoke to the lane judges in the 1500.
I can believe that. I can believe that. Anyway, so that was the beginning of my swimming career. And the next year in Salisbury in 1966, I don't know what happened to Neil Aldridge, but Vernon Slovan went back to America.
Okay.
And remember, being Rhodesians, we peaked once a year for Currie Cup. So we spent a week in South Africa. That was the highlight of our swimming career. And the South Africans were swimming against each other interprovincially and what have you. So they all knew each other. And I was a completely sort of from outer space, from Rhodesia, as a real sort of country boy. And I was 15. I won the 100 and the 200 fly. In times slower than what Vernon would have done, but and it was at 5,000 feet above sea level. But Vernon was gone. Anyway, so that carried on for 6 years. Or 5 years. Okay. Until
both the 100 and 200. And was it meters or yards? Because I often
it was yards in the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
And then in 1966 was the only time I lost to a guy called Harold Pierce from the Free State. Okay. In the 100, we both clocked the same time on opposite sides of the pool. Okay. And he was given the decision. It was one of the many races I regret, but it gave me a sort of a kick-ass wake-up, and it only happened.
You were involved in a pretty few very close races where even sometimes the first 3 got the same time. First four.
Yeah, so that
was incredible. We'll get to that. Yeah.
That was my first close phase, and so I won six Currie Cup titles, 2 for 6 years. So that was 12 titles, except for the time that Vernon, Harold Pierce
won,
beat me, and then Vernon came back. Vernon came back in 68 or 69, I think it was 68. I think.
Yeah, I think he came back in 68 and then swam in 69 in the beginning of the year.
Anyway, in that particular time, he came back and he was rated 3rd in the world, and the press made a meal out of that. And I had been ranked as well from the bush of Rhodesia. Prior to that, I'd also been ranked in the top 3. So it was going to be a dice, and Vernon came with American cycling kind of attitude.
Yes,
you learnt in America how to frighten your opposition.
Yes.
Well, it had the opposite effect on me, because I didn't sleep for about 3 days beforehand, to be quite frank, he frightened the bloody daylights out of me.
Oh wow!
And urged me to greater effort, if anything, because I'd been the big shot now for all the time he was away.
Yes.
And he'd been the big shot before I came along, so there was a lot of ego attached, I think. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I was fortunate enough to beat him.
This was in Cape Town now.
Yeah.
That was nationals in Cape Town.
Yeah, and then he came, and then we swam also in the Free State. We swam 2 races. I swam against him 6 times in total in '68 and '69.
Okay.
Because then in the next Currie Cup in Pretoria, I swam against him again. So I swam against Vernon 6 times, and I beat him 5 times, and he beat me once, which was so kind of the odds were.
And that was when you were a lot younger. Was that before he left?
No, when he came back already.
When he came back, he beat you once.
Yes, once. Yeah. No, okay. I'm not. When I say 6 times, I'm not talking about the 1964.
Okay.
When he came back, I swam against him
after you came back 6 times.
2 Currie Cups in '68, 2 Currie Cups in '69, and once in Bloemfontein in the middle. So there were 6 races.
And that was the South African Games, the Bloemfontein one.
Yes.
And you had guys from the Commonwealth swimming as well.
Olympics.
Some Olympics as well.
We had a guy there, Martin Woodruff, who had come.
Yes.
He'd come second at the Mexico Olympics in 1968.
In the 200 butterfly.
In the 200, yeah. And so we had a big dice, the 3 of us then.
Was that the race where all 4 of you had the same time?
No, that was in England.
Oh, was that in England?
Yeah, I can't remember the date now. I think it was about 1966. I swam in the British Championships.
Okay.
And in the 100 fly, no electronic timing, no touch pads, just old-fashioned 4 watches on each lane. 4 of us were all accredited with exactly the same time. And the chief judge had to split us. And it was terribly, terribly controversial. I was given 3rd, but the guy who was given 1st, I reckon I touched in front of him. And the guy who was given 4th, I think he beat me. So we all had our own view. But in typical...
And no TV replays or anything to slow motion or something?
I suspect that in true British sporting sort of protocols, they gave the title... They gave the first prize to the reigning champion, a guy called John Thurley, and that
out of respect.
That took some of the politics out of it. He said, "Okay, well, push comes to shove, he is the champion." So that was quite. Interesting.
I think they were pretty sore still because that team of Jeff Grills and Brian Stewart, when they went over and they won, I think 9 of the 11 titles. Yes. That was probably still in the background. So.
And Vernon was one of the blokes in that team.
He was one of the guys there. Yes. And was he also in this race that you?
No, he wasn't. No.
Okay.
No, I think he was still in America then.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we had some. So I never really got to know Vernon because I was in Rhodesia, he was in South Africa, and when we got together, we stared daggers at each other. And by the way, Sebastian, if you're listening to this, I must say I really enjoyed the interview you had with Tace. And salute your dad in his passing, because he was a guy that frightened the hell out of me. I had an enormous amount of respect for him, and I'm sure when it was all over, if he was still in the country, we would have had mutual respect for each other. Yeah. But it's hard to be a competitor with a guy when he's living on another continent to you.
That's kind of you. I mean, back in those days, you wouldn't write letters or anything. No. Phone calls were too expensive, so you saw each other once a year in Currie Cup, and then you were in racing mode.
And quite frankly, I didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this psychological psyching out. What did he say to you?
No, he didn't say anything to me, but he said something to the press. And the day before our race, some bloke had written in the newspaper that if I wanted to beat Vernon Slovan, I was going to have to break a world record.
Okay.
So you can imagine that's quite a stimulating thing.
Quite a statement to make.
Yeah.
How close were you to the world records? Because you were ranked in the top in the world.
Yeah, we were knocking on the door, and that's one of the reasons it made it very hard. In Mexico, we weren't allowed to go to Mexico. 3 weeks before we went to Mexico, we were...
All the hard work done.
Yeah. And when Munich came around 4 years later, I couldn't do it because we had a war on, and we didn't get time off to train like these guys do. I see they all 26, 27, 28 years old.
Yeah.
We weren't professional swimmers.
It's a real pity that you guys sort of had to give up because you had to look after your family or your own, financial interests. So you had to work and you couldn't swim.
Yes, and then what broke all our hearts was Mark Spitz came along after 1968.
72.
And he knocked about 6 seconds off the 200 meters butterfly thing. So as much as we started to creep, we were within 1.5 seconds. Okay. Vernon and I were probably within 1.5 seconds, less than 1.5 seconds away.
Okay,
and catching.
And closing the gap.
Getting closer. And at Mexico, I don't know what happened to Vernon. I don't think he was at Mexico, but I wasn't even invited. So So we were getting quite close, and then Mark Spitz came along. And what a lot of people have forgotten, because everybody now talks about Michael Phelps, that Mark Spitz didn't only win 7 gold medals at one Olympics. What a lot of people have forgotten is every single swim was a world record.
Yeah, people don't say that in the same breath. Yes. They just say he won 7 golds.
Yeah, every one was a world record, and
that's incredible. So he just took seconds off.
Yes, and just as I got close, I had to go to war, and I had to have a job, and I was finished with university, so I just thought, no, man, it's a bridge too far. Yeah, and that's why I stopped. You
never went to swim in the States, but you got invites to go and swim at universities overseas.
I was invited. I've still got the letter from a guy called Dr. James Councilman from Indiana University.
That's what I wanted to touch on.
Who is one of the top coaches.
Yes.
But I look back on those days half a century ago, and we were terribly, terribly up. All 250,000 white Rhodesians. We were very patriotic. Yeah. And I was very close to Frank Parrington, my coach.
Yes.
And I figured, look, we're getting quite close to beating these guys. Would have been a slap in the face to say, thanks, Frank, you brought me along this far.
Yeah, now I'm going
to be a bit of a pariah or a traitor and go and swim with somebody else. So I decided to hang in with Frank.
Yeah.
And at the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. Yeah. Who knows? As the Americans say, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but I'm quite happy with it.
No, I heard that Doc Councilman actually wrote a letter saying that he'd like to get this John Keyter because he looks like someone who could be a world beater. That was his own words.
Yeah, I've still got the letter. Yeah, he wrote to my coach.
That's incredible. That's incredible. A huge compliment, because when I started swimming, all councilmen's sort of programs and philosophies, people knew about that.
Yeah.
So you swam for Rhodesia, and Rhodesia competed in South Africa, and I believe you guys won like 6 Currie Cups in a row, or something like that, something silly.
No, we did. It was a little bit unfair, to tell the truth, though, because in those days the diving and the swimming were all put in the same in the same pot from a points point of view. Yes, our divers used to win everything.
Yeah, I heard so.
We kept our end up. The men's swimming team kept our end up. Our women swimmers didn't have nearly score anywhere near the same kind of points. But at the end of the day, we won the Currie Cup mainly, I think it's fair to say, because of our
divers.
Our divers who used to win the 1 meter and the 3 meter and the women's and the men's and everything you can think of. Yeah,
that's incredible. Now I'm just so glad that we get a bit of the Rhodesian swimming history into the history of South African swimming, or Southern African swimming, because you guys played a major part. I mean, competitiveness, you guys obviously pushed the South African swimmers to greater times and better times, and in the end it was to the benefit of Southern African swimming, because if I look at the 1950s and maybe even earlier, I don't know much about the earlier, but 1950s, 1960s, it was a golden era for Southern African swimming. Some incredible names that came out of that, and even into the 70s, 1970s.
Well, I think it's fair to say that in that era you're talking about, when the famous or the well-known Springbok coaches like Peter Elliott and Frank Gray and Cecil Colwyn, I think it's fair to say that Frank Parrington's name can go up in neon lights with those, because at any one time I was swimming in a club pool with Frank, and we had 3 or 4 South African champions in the same squad. So we had a coaching of a standard as good as you would get in South Africa. We didn't have the competition, that's all. We were already country bumpkins.
Yeah. You went on only 1 international tour, as far as I know.
Yeah. That's when
tell me about that. So that's when you swam in England as well.
Yeah, and we had trouble with a little, I must watch my language. He's now a lord. His name is Peter Hain, and he's now made a big name for himself in British politics. He's a lord, nogal. But he made his name as a political activist in those early days, and sport was his target. He was responsible, I think, for helping them to drop flower bombs on the Springboks in New Zealand.
Very well.
And he certainly did a hell of a lot to curtail my swimming career and our reputation in England. So our swimming trip to England was very much a clandestine.
Yeah.
We had to swim where, in backward places and indoor heated swimming pools, I think, built at the same time as the Romans. But it was an interesting trip, except for the British nationals.
Yes.
I don't know what we were.
Where was that swim?
Blackpool.
Oh, in Blackpool.
Yeah. And then I got what they call the Blackpool bug, which is like a jibber gut, which I couldn't even swim the 200. I was so sick, I couldn't even stand.
Oh no.
Yeah. But That was my only
overseas tour.
Yeah.
So you gave up shortly after the race against Slovan. You still went to one South African Nationals and won both races again.
Yes, that was in Pretoria in
1970.
Yeah, I think. But yeah.
Okay.
I think Vernon had gone by then.
Yeah. I want to touch on something else, open water swimming. I believe you are still the only guy to have ever done the mile butterfly. And not only once, you've done it more than once.
Yeah, there's a funny story attached to that, because I don't know if I'm the only one stupid enough. But when I was training with Frank Parrington, Sunday mornings I used to swim 1,000 yards, which is 30 lengths, 30 lengths of the 33 and a third yard swimming pool.
Okay.
Butterfly. That was my Sunday morning. Other people went to church, I had to do a time trial. And so then I thought I would give it a try when I was in my late 40s, and I managed it, but I trained for about 3 months.
So how old were you in your 40s when you did it?
I must have been about 47, and I did it in just over 28 minutes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, well, because you need your own space to swim butterfly, so you can't swim.
So the start's pretty difficult with 1,000 guys trying to.
Yeah, because every time they knock you, got to bloody stop and start again. So I went wide.
Okay.
I got a friend of mine to measure the distance if I started 20 yards on the one side, and it made hardly any difference. So that's what I did.
Okay.
But the funny story is that the last time I did it, I was 50, and when I got to the end, I was tired. I was like very tired. I did it in about 30 odd minutes, and I had a whistling in my ears.
Okay.
And I thought, it's rather strange, but I'll go and have a Brian, a couple of drinks with my mates, and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Well, when I went to work on Monday morning, the whistling was still there, and so I figured that maybe
heard something.
It was a half an hour too much.
Okay.
So I thought I better not do it again.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy, as you can imagine.
Unbelievable. Butterfly to me is all about rhythm. So if you find your rhythm, then it is easy. But if you're not fit to keep your rhythm, is very difficult.
It's like breaststroke. It's about timing.
Yeah. I never saw you swim, obviously. I've seen pictures of you swimming. Did you have a double two-beat kick? Because just before you guys swam butterfly, a couple of years before that, the guys still used the breaststroke kick sometimes.
That's right. It was called trudgeon, I think. They used to do breaststroke kick with a,
Okay.
That was a bit before my time. I'm not that old. Yeah. Johnny Wisemiller's day.
Johnny Wisemiller's day, you had a breaststroke kick.
Yeah.
So you had a potent kick. I remember Kobus Skeppers, he had one of the most potent butterfly kicks I've ever seen.
Oh, did he? I never saw him. So.
I actually photographed Chad de Clos in this pool, and I watched these underwater, and it's all about being flexible but with strength.
Yes.
And I mean, that guy's kick is just incredible to
And that
to
multiple
watch.
dolphin kick when they push off the wall, they go halfway across the pool, still underwater. We didn't know about that in those days.
No.
We came up and started swimming as soon as you can, virtually.
I think the swimming techniques have changed tremendously, and obviously the training programs have changed, but I think what's changed the most, in my opinion, is the diet.
Yes.
The people eat fuel now. We just ate.
Yeah.
Steak,
egg and chips.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Tell me, you competed in master swimming?
Yeah, I did. But at a time in my life when I wanted to enjoy my swimming, I found this competitive monkey sitting here on my shoulder was terrorizing me, and I just said, "Footsack monkey, go away, just leave me alone." So I stopped master swimming for that reason. Every time I got in the water, if I didn't do the time I thought I was going to do, then I was depressed for a week afterwards. And I thought, you're a big boy now, you must actually, and I still swim regularly. As I said to you, I had to
talk to me about the swim this morning. Did you?
I'm here with my son-in-law, and I was told that if I don't get in the water at Camps Bay this morning at 13 degrees, he's
nice and warm.
He's going to tell you that you mustn't think I'm a swimming legend if I'm frightened of cold water. So I had a quick swim this morning, just to keep the politics.
You guys are a bit spoiled in Durban with the water temperature there.
We don't get in the water if it's 18. It's miserable.
So you say you regularly still swim. How often would you say in a week would you swim?
Three times, four times
a week. And would you then go to a swimming pool and do laps?
Yeah. Virgin Active.
Okay, and still have a good stroke.
COVID allowing.
And any butterfly in that?
Yeah.
Really? Shoulders still fine?
Yeah, they're not as flexible as they used to be. And there's other parts which have got a bit of rust. And but I have no health problems at all except for a bit of arthritis.
That's great to hear, John.
Yeah.
And you spoke about your coach. You stayed with the same coach your whole competitive swimming career.
Yeah. It was my second father, actually. We used to train at night in the dark when everybody else had gone home. We'd put in another couple of thousand. So that's why I couldn't go and swim for Dr. Councilman when I was that close to Frank.
I spoke to Simon Gray about 2 or 3 days ago, and when I mentioned I was going to chat to you, he says, well, he sends his regards. And he mentioned he was a 10-year-old boy swimming in one of the heats. He said he couldn't remember whether it was against you or it was against Vernon.
No, I think it was against me. I think I remember him. I think it was in Pretoria, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so he was a 10-year-old, and then obviously came back a few years later and rewrote the history books of South African swimming. So I'll chat to him in January. I'm very keen to get his story as well.
And his brother Nicky, who was also a South African champion, I understand. He was also a 200 metres butterfly champion, coaches at the same Virgin Active in Kloof, in Hillcrest, Pretoria, Durban, where I live.
And
because
obviously
they were all swimming family, starting with
their father coached
Karen
Muir and many legends in Kimberley. Started off in Kimberley and then went to Bloemfontein.
I think even Vernon swam with him.
That's right. Yeah.
When Vernon came back from the States, I think
that's right.
Yes,
I think you're 100% correct.
That added to my tension because this guy comes back with a big name and he's now training with Frank Gray as well.
Yeah. So a lot of ammo to use against you.
Yeah, and South Africa had Anne Fairley. A lot of people forget Anne Fairley was a world champion at the same time as Karen. We had you're never sure who was the world record holder.
Yeah, I think they broke the world record. Anne broke the world record 3 times in 1 year, and then Karen broke her world record.
Yeah.
So I had a chat with Anne. She's still looking super fit, cycles a lot, and South Africa and Rhodesia, Southern Africa had so many great swimmers, and I've only scratching the surface because I've still got so many more to interview. But I really appreciate you, making the time and chatting to me about your.
Just a quickie about Anne. Anne was a rock star in our day. She was beautiful. She had a wonderful figure. She was a world champion. And we come down on the train from Rhodesia and we bloody read about this lady, and she was beautiful and lovely figure. And she had a guy, I don't know if she was involved with him or not, but he was a doctor, if I remember correctly. He had a sports car. Yeah. So here's Anne Fairley driving around with this sort of macho oak with a blooming sports car, and she's a world champion. Yeah. She really was, in another league, like a film star to us Wenwe's sort of country bumpkins.
That's not the full story. I believe you used a bit of your journalist. Talk to me about that.
That was a bit naughty. She's going to blush when she remembers this story.
You know what? I think the years have cured everything.
So she was staying in the same hotel as us. Okay. So one afternoon, during the Currie Cup, we used to have heats in the morning, finals at night. I got put through to her room and I pretended I was a journalist, and I was asking her all about her swimming career and everything. And towards the end of the interview, when I felt I had her hooked, I asked her if she would tell me what her vital statistics were, because she's got such a feminine figure and all the rest of it, which is a little bit different to what women swimmers were supposed to look like. Yeah. And so she giggled a little bit, and I managed to get out of her what she figured was it. Well, I can't remember the exact number, but the next day when she came down to dinner, and myself and all my thug Rhodesian mates were sitting around, as she walked past the table, I said, I don't know if these are the right numbers, but whatever they were, it's material. I just said 36, 24, 36, whatever the numbers were. And penny dropped. She realised she'd just been taken. And of course all the blokes burst out laughing, and she must have blushed right down.
And what did she say? Did she respond or not?
She said nothing, boy. She just bloody
like a true lady.
She took it like a complete lady, and she hustled on and pretended that she didn't listen to these thugs.
Well, that's it
was such a giggle at the time, though.
Those are the stories that keep us, reminiscing about the past and the great. Competitive swimming is a tough sport. Yeah. But the camaraderie that is built up in hours in the pool, that's what keeps us going back. And since I've started this series, I did the first one with Paul Blackbeard and didn't really take notice. I just wanted to know more about Paul because he was my hero. Yes. And the comments afterwards, I mean, that's how I met you. It's through the comments, and Brian Stewart and all these guys started commenting. And I think there's a place for these type of, just going back on into the history and also maybe for our kids and for the youngsters. That is the era that we, that sort of defined
who we are today.
Our young age, but also who we are today. I mean, I'm still in touch with my swimming coach, Libby. She lives in Whistler in Canada. Goodness. And we chat to each other regularly on social media. And I've done an interview with Libby as well. So I swam in this pool many times. This was a 33-meter pool before they fixed
33 yards.
I think that we said 33 meters in the 80s. It was meters already.
Okay.
But what's also nice, it connected me with my mum, who was at Marty's, and remember the story she told about coming to the swimming pool, and the guys fixed Nell and these guys who swam here. So it's wonderful that we can go back in these stories. And tell me, after swimming, as a career, what did you do?
I got a degree, a BSc Economics.
From what university?
From the University of London.
Oh, okay.
Which had a college in Rhodesia, so I got a British degree. And I majored in political science, so I became a political reporter.
Okay.
And then
so that Anne Fairley interview sort of got you on.
Well, I was kind of dabbling with that already then. It was like different kind of politics,
Great. So you worked as a journalist?
For a bit, and then I did all kinds of other things. I've been back overseas. I worked on the oil rigs for a bit, and then I came to South Africa, and I eventually retired 6 or 7 years ago. I was a partner in a forensic investigation team, catching people who were stealing money and other things.
Interesting life.
Yeah, it was very challenging and very interesting, and of course the police force not in such good shape anymore. So it was a kind of golden opportunity to do commercially what they were supposed to be doing as a government service. Just a bit more, we're a bit more expensive than the government.
So I want to put a challenge out there to all the guys that I've interviewed. Maybe it's time. I've never done the mid-mile. I've never done it. So I think we've got to sort of work towards a reunion, whether it's next year or the year after. Let's get COVID done and dusted, and then we all go and we do a slow breaststroke or backstroke.
So long as I don't have to swim butterfly.
No, you don't have to. You've done your because otherwise you're going to say, I've got to swim butterfly as well.
I'll do flippers maybe.
No, we do whatever, pool boy, everything. We use all the help we can get. We float on swimming pool. We can even do it on a rubber duck. But I think we need to get all these great mates together. You know, the Anne Fairleys, Cobus Skippers from England, Greg Carswell, Jeff Grills.
I wonder what happened to Neil Aldridge. I mean,
we need to try and find these guys. So
maybe you'll read this and. Because he was in the same sort of league as he and Vernon Slovan in those 64, 63, 1963, 64 were
there's a Mike Bolstridge as well that they spoke about.
No, Mike was from Natal, so I can see him, and a bloke called Chris Lee from Joburg, and the guy I told you from the Free State who beat me, Harold Pierce. But there were a lot of other well-known swimmers, John Reen.
Yeah, John Reen. Jeff Grills spoke about him as well.
And John Reen and Robbie de Villiers was an IM champion before Lee McGregor. I think Lee probably broke his records. And so there were some, they were big. They, as you say, their memories are sort of in the fuzzy distance, but they were big names in their day.
Massive names, and that's why I do this, because I think you need to shine a bit of light on these guys. The modern day swimmers, they get a lot of TV coverage and they're on social media, but I love these stories. I love the old stories, because that's what created the platform for these new kids to perform. But I really enjoyed chatting to you, John. Many years of good health.
Thank you.
And maybe I can one day
I'll see you at mid-mile one day.
See you at the mid-mile one day. Thank you so much.
Maybe we go with Jeff Grills and swim in the Swartkorps Mile, because there I think you go downstream.
There we go. Now see, we got to pick our competition very carefully. I looked at Jeff Grills and he might just kick all our asses.
With his head up.
With his head up and still chatting to the guys on the riverbanks. It was so nice to speak to you.
Thank you, Tace.
Congratulations. One thing that before we end off, you were awarded the Sportsman of the Year for Rhodesia, the only swimmer ever. I don't think after you ever a swimmer has won that.
I think Kirsty Coventry might have.
After Olympic gold medals,
Yes, I think Kirsty, if she didn't, she should have been.
Yes, she should have. But that would be Zimbabwean anyway. You
were
Rhodesian.
I wasn't a Zimbabwean. I left before then, I ran away.
Congratulations. That is a massive accolade a feather to put in your cap.
Thanks.
Nice trophy as well. You sent me a picture of that shield. You still have it?
That was when I was inducted into the Zimbabwean Sportsman's Hall of Fame.
Okay,
which was really quite strange, because that only happened in 2015. And I was a sportsman of the year.
Africa time, they move slowly in Africa.
That's you're telling me. 1969 to 2015, and they still remembered me.
Well, they still remembered you. That is that says something about your achievements. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's nice to look back on these things, and the hard work paid off.
Thank you, Tace.
Well done, and on a stellar career.
Thank you.
And now that your son's got a business down in Stellenbosch, you've got no excuse. We'll be in this pool next time you come down here. It's warmer than Camps Bay water.
Okay, that's encouraging.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tace. Thanks.
It was a real honor and a privilege.
Thanks, pal.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.